Hi guys, this is Vidya and I hope you're doing well. Today we are still talking about toddler tantrums because there's just so much to talk about in this subject. If you missed my previous video, go check that out because I've spoken about how I've kind of changed my mindset towards tantrums and why they occur and some things I don't do with my child when he's having a tantrum. And I've sort of spoken in that video in a way that shows that Vikrant is over the stage, which is not true. We are still dealing with it on a daily basis, but it's just gotten a little bit easier because I have come to know when he's going to break down or when he's going to lose control over his emotions. So I've come to predict that a little bit better, so I'm more prepared. Even if he is still going through a hard time, it changes how I react to it. So in this video I'm going to talk about some of the, I wouldn't say tricks up my sleeve, but some of the tools that I've gathered in order to deal with this stressful situation for him and me better. Firstly, I try to be aware of his routine, like the things that he finds normal in his everyday life, because toddlers are suckers for control and for a routine, for familiarity basically, because there's so much that is beyond their control in this world, so much that they don't understand about, and so whatever little they do understand, they hold it very sacred. So whether it is a daily routine, like this is the time my parents come home and this is what we do after that, we have dinner here and then we have a story or a bath and then we go to bed, if whether it's that routine or if it is a plate that they hold very important and they have to have food in that particular plate, or they have to have a toy set in a certain way to play with. So if it's those little things that they gain a sense of control over, and when those change, the whole world collapses, because suddenly some things that they counted on don't happen, right? So these small things are so important for toddlers, and it's a good thing to try and understand it, and so that we can anticipate when things don't go that well. So for example, if Vikrant has a certain routine of his day and we're going out and I know that routine is going to be disrupted, I try to talk to him about it before. I also try to make it as fun as I can so that he is actually looking forward to a little change in his routine. So even though it's a little change, he is prepared for it. So he is, kind of accepted that this is going to happen tomorrow. Even when I've tried my best to prepare him, sometimes things don't go as planned and he still loses his cool. He has a meltdown, and then it's important for me to give him the language to deal with it. So that means explaining to him what he's going through, because when they're in the womb or when they are babies, they really don't have many emotions. They're either hungry or sleepy, right? And once they are 1 year old, they have all these new emotions in their mind and they don't know what's going on. Like they have anxiety and fears of different things and they don't know how to handle those because they're too overwhelming. This is completely new to them. One way to understand it is when we see, say, a horror film, we expect to be scared. Even though being scared is an unpleasant feeling, we expect it because we chose it. So that kind of prepares us for that experience. But suddenly if we're seeing a comedy film and something scary jumps out, that kind of shakes us up. So for a toddler, every new experience is like that unexpected feeling that jumps at them from nowhere and completely takes over. So talking to them about it and putting words to emotions is very important to learn to deal with this. So for example, if Vikrant is crying over a broken toy, instead of saying, okay, we'll get you another toy, it's okay, or I'll fix it, it's okay, and be done with it, I try to get down on his level and say, you're so upset because your toy broke, right? So he knows now that what he's feeling is upset, and I also try to talk to him about why he's feeling upset. So even when he's crying, right, so I try to empathize with him and say things like, you were playing with it and you tried to open the door of this toy car too wide and then it snapped right here, look, this is where it broke. So I try to stay there with him and help him process that emotion and give words to that feeling instead of distracting him, and in which case he'll just forget about it and that emotion will creep up on him later, and the same thing will happen later. When we look at it like this, tantrums actually become a great opportunity for growth and learning instead of just something that we have to get through to get to the good times. So giving him the language to deal with emotions helps him the next time he's having the same emotion. Like if a toy breaks again, he'll come to me. He might still be crying his eyes out, but he sometimes tells me, "Mommy, I was playing with this and I hit it too hard and it broke right here, and could you fix it?" or something like that. So he's getting one step closer to dealing with that emotion, even though it's so big, right? So it's a stepwise process. It'll take a while before he gets a complete grip over his emotions. It'll be a few years maybe, but he'll get there eventually. And it's a great tool to have as you're growing up, to know what you're feeling and to be able to express it well. I would also not say no immediately. This applies when toddlers start to throw tantrums because of demands that we cannot meet. For example, Vikrant is obsessed with car toys and he would want a new car toy, a particular one, even though we had bought him a toy just the day before. So as soon as he asks me for a different toy, instead of saying, "No, you just got a toy yesterday, I cannot give this to you," even though it may seem gentle, it doesn't work, because immediately he would go into meltdown mode. So instead of saying no immediately, I would say, "You want this particular toy now? Okay, why do you want to tell me why you want it?" So he would say, "Because this is different, this is a different color, or this is a different model," or something. He would use his primitive vocabulary to explain. And then I would say, "Oh yeah, this does look different from that, and you want this one now?" So he would say yes, and at that point he would start getting a little frustrated, like, "Give it to me already." So then I would just take it further and indulge him in imagination, and I would say that you wish you would have it right now, you wish you could introduce it to your other toys. And so his imagination starts working, right? And this works for toddlers because they still don't know the difference between reality and imagination that well. If I try to give it to him in his imagination, he still gets the satisfaction out of it, and he still gets that wish fulfilled in his mind, and this works really well. So coming back to that car toy example, we would just imagine that we would go and get a toy and we would take it to the level of being silly and ridiculous. So I would say, "So that car, do you want a small one or a big one?" So he would say, "A big one." And I would say, "Do you want a giant one that could sit on top of our home?" And then he would start laughing about it, or something silly, right? So instead of distracting him again, we are using this experience to get the satisfaction out of it without actually having to buy it. And then towards the end, if he still wants it, if he's still cranky, then I would use something else to deal with it. Like, "Okay, because you just had that new one, maybe we could buy it next week when we go to that store." So by the time I pass the judgment that he can't have it, he has already derived satisfaction from that car toy. We adults don't function like this. Like, we need that actual thing in our hands to get satisfaction from it. But for toddlers, it's a little different. They can get that feeling from their imagination, and this is something I make use of on a daily basis. Like, I play to his imagination with things that he cannot have in that moment. This also works for treats like candy or chocolate. If he is asking me for a piece of chocolate for the 10th time in the same day, and I obviously can't give it to him, I would say, "Oh, so you want to eat a lot of chocolate, right? So you want to eat the whole box of chocolate, and then what do you think will happen?" And then he would laugh and say, "My belly would become really big." And then I would say, "And your teeth would become really brown." And we would kind of try to make a picture with a kid who has eaten a lot of chocolate and his teeth got all brown. And then we would say that would give lots of cavities to that little kid, and then he would have to go to the dentist. And by this point, he'll start getting so invested in that story that he'll ask me questions like, "And then what did the dentist do? And what will the little boy say? Will he get hurt?" He'll get all of that going in his imagination. So this is something I definitely do before I say no to what he says. And I try not to have very strict rules. For example, if he's having lunch and he doesn't want to sit still in his chair at the dining table, we would say, "Let's have a picnic," and we would bring all of the food down on the floor, put a mat, and pretend that we are having a picnic outside, and we would pretend that there's bears or there's raccoons, and we would make it a whole experience. So that little change in scenery gives him a new perspective and helps him get a little more fun out of everyday mundane things. Another thing that helps toddlers get a sense of control over their day is giving them choices, like simple choices. Do you want this or that for lunch, or do you want to eat in this plate or that plate, do you want to wear this shirt or that shirt. Giving them the chance to make a decision helps them get a sense of control over their life, and once those little things add up, their day goes much better, I feel. So I try to incorporate as many choices as I can throughout his day. So that's a good thing to note. I also try and spend more time with him before I do what I need to do. The way we think is, let me finish all of my work and then I can happily play with my child. But by then your child has already missed you for way too long and they are already in meltdown mode. And not getting attention from their parents is one of the biggest triggers for toddlers to have their meltdowns. But I try to play with him before I need to do something else or I need to go out. So he feels like he has gotten his dose of mommy and him playtime, that quality time that makes him feel good. So we get that play out of the way first before getting into other things. So this little switch in my schedule makes his day go more peacefully, so why not, right? I also ask myself why he's doing certain things before I make a judgment in my mind. Like for example, if he turns over a whole bin full of toys and makes a big mess, instead of thinking that he's just being naughty and he's doing it just for the sake of it, I just watch for a few seconds more. And sometimes he has a plan in mind, like he'll empty the whole bin and then he'll sit into the bin and he'll pretend that it's a boat or something. So he had that plan and this was just one step to that. If I immediately say, why did you make that big mess? Come out and clean it up right now. Don't be silly. So his plan gets stopped and what he was imagining, what he was actually putting everything into is stopped now. So he starts to cry, obviously, right? And for good reason. When our plans fail, we get really upset. So instead of that, I try to see what he's doing and let him play with that, let him do what he wants to do with that bin. And then when he's done with that and is about to move on to something else, I'll step in and say, hey, let's pick up this before we do that and I'll help you clean this up. Instead of saying, help me do this, I'll say, because he made the mess, I'll say, I'll help you. Come on, let's do it. I'll help you pick this up. So then he learns that he can still do what he wants to do. And then there are things that need to be done after he's finished. But some of the times I feel like he's having a tantrum for no apparent reason. Like he's just kicking and screaming for the sake of it. And I don't know why. So in those times I try to get creative and we incorporate a lot of silliness. So if he's having a tantrum and stomping around and screaming, I'd say, can I join the party? And I stomp around with him. Or if he's laying on the floor kicking his legs up in the air and screaming, I would join him and do that. So that after he is done doing that, after he's let out, after he's released his energy, he is starting to laugh and he's finding the whole thing very silly. But I only do this only if I haven't seen any other reason, only if he's not hungry or tired or if he's not bothered by anything else and just has to let off some steam, right? We all need to do that. Another way to spend some pent-up energy, which toddlers have lots of, is to go outdoors. I wouldn't take him outdoors right in the middle of a tantrum just to stop him from crying, but once it has subsided, we would go out and get some fresh air. It's amazing how beneficial it is for children to be outdoors, get some fresh air, run around, play, jump, climb. So I try to incorporate some kind of outdoor play or outdoor time every day if the weather is good. Sometimes that's not possible, in which case we are just active as much as we can around the house. Like we run around, we make forts out of pillows and climb over them. We do things that are silly and fun at the same time that require him to use some of his energy. And lastly, I want to mention some things that I think about for myself, some questions I ask myself when my son is going through a hard time. And one of those things I spoke about in my previous video is trying not to lose my cool and not have an adult tantrum. Adult tantrums look something like this. We yell at our kids, we hit them, all in the name of discipline. We put them on timeout, or we lock them in a room, or we lock ourselves in a room because we just can't handle it. And it is completely normal to go through this, right? Because toddlers can really push our buttons. They can push us over the edge. So I need to be aware of this reaction in myself before I take it out on him. Next, I also ask myself, why is this affecting me so much? Like, if he is not putting his toys away, and after I've asked him to do so multiple times, why is it affecting me? Is it because my ego feels like I don't have any control over this child, or my ego gets hurt because how dare he not listen to my orders, right? Because subconsciously we think like that. We feel really hurt when someone doesn't listen to us. So I ask myself, is it just my ego, or does this really matter? Sometimes we also react out of our own fears. Like if my son is screaming and running around and making a ruckus and I tell him to stop, but he completely ignores me, and I feel like I have to step it up, otherwise he'll form a habit out of this. And I start making projections about his future, like, will he grow up to be a disrespectful individual? Will he not care about me when he grows up? And so all of these projections, they don't make any sense in the present moment. In the present moment, your child is just having a good time. He's just running around because he wants to, and he didn't hear you, right? And most of the time it's not a big deal right now, and I try to deal with the situation in the present moment and not get my fears involved in it. I also try to ask myself if my anger towards him is directed towards him, or am I angry at someone else? Or if I've had a long day and I'm tired, or if I didn't get to eat, I start getting hangry. If I didn't get enough sleep, I start getting angry quicker. And if someone else has said something to me that has upset me, and I might be taking out on my child. So I try to ask myself just before I'm about to lose it completely, is it really directed towards him, or is it something else manifesting as anger towards my child? So these things kind of help me deal with myself when my child is having a tantrum. So not that these are strategies to stop a child from having tantrums, because that's not the goal. The goal is not to shut them up and to avoid tantrums and have them well behaved at all times and in control all the times, but give them the skills to deal with a tough situation and come out of it making a little more sense of the world around them. So that is the goal, and these are the skills that will be very valuable to both me and my son. So I thought I'd share them with you. And if you've sticked around for this long, thank you so much. I do hope you find some use in this. Let me know in the comment section below if you've used any of these things in your home and see how it works. And I'll see you in another video of mine. Until then, take care. Bye.